The morning sun fell gently over the large white house at the edge of the city. It was the kind of house that made people slow their steps when they passed, with tall gates, trimmed gardens, and quiet guards who watched without speaking. Inside this house lived Mark, a successful businessman whose name was known in offices, banks, and business halls across the region. People spoke of his wealth, his calm manners, and his sharp mind. Very few people spoke about where he came from. Mark woke early that day, as he always did. He believed that discipline had saved his life long before money ever did. He stood by the window of his bedroom, looking out at the garden where flowers were being watered by the staff. The smell of fresh soil brought back memories he rarely allowed himself to think about. Downstairs, the house was already busy. Staff members moved quietly, preparing breakfast, polishing surfaces, and making sure everything looked perfect. Among them was Anna, an elderly woman with gray hair tied neatly at the back. Her hands moved slower than they once did, but her eyes were sharp and gentle. She had been working in this house for many years, long before Mark married his wife. Anna was not just a worker in Mark's life. She had been his childhood nanny. She was the one who fed him when his parents worked long hours. She was the one who walked him to school when money was tight. She had wiped his tears when other children mocked his worn clothes. To Mark, she was family, though he never spoke about it openly. Lena, Mark's wife, entered the dining room wearing an elegant dress. Her posture was proud, and her expression showed impatience. She had grown up in comfort and believed that order came from strict control. She disliked anything that reminded her of weakness or poverty. She glanced around the room and noticed Anna placing fresh flowers on the table. "Who told you to put those there?" Lena asked sharply. Anna turned, slightly startled, but answered politely. "I thought it would brighten the room this morning." Lena frowned. "You think too much for your position. Just do what you are told." Anna nodded quietly and reached to remove the flowers. Her hands trembled slightly, but she said nothing. Mark entered the room at that moment. He greeted Lena with a brief smile and nodded at Anna. His eyes lingered for a second longer than usual, noticing her lowered gaze. Breakfast was served in silence. Lena scrolled through her phone, occasionally sighing. Mark drank his coffee and listened. He had learned long ago that silence often revealed more than words. After breakfast, Lena called Anna back into the room. "You forgot to clean the corner near the stairs," Lena said loudly, even though other staff members were nearby. "I will clean it right away," Anna replied softly. Lena stood up. "At your age, you should be grateful to still have work. Mistakes are not acceptable here." The room grew tense. A few staff members exchanged nervous glances. Anna's face turned pale, but she bowed her head respectfully. "I am sorry," she said. Mark felt something tighten in his chest. Memories surfaced without warning. He remembered a cold winter when Anna had wrapped her own shawl around him because he had no coat. He remembered her skipping meals so he could eat. He remembered promising himself as a child that one day he would repay her kindness. But Mark said nothing. Not yet. Later that afternoon, Mark left the house for a business meeting. Lena assumed the matter was over. She believed control meant silence from others. Anna spent the day working quietly. Her back ached and her legs felt heavy, but she refused to rest until her duties were done. As she cleaned the hallway, she paused to look at a small framed photo on the wall. It was an old picture of Mark as a child, smiling shyly, standing beside her. Lena had never noticed it, nor did she care. That evening, Mark returned earlier than expected. He walked through the house slowly, observing. He saw Anna carrying a heavy basket of laundry alone. "Why are you doing this by yourself?" he asked calmly. Anna looked surprised. "The others are busy, sir." Mark gently took the basket from her. "Please rest. I will handle this." Anna's eyes widened. "No, sir, I cannot allow that." "You can," Mark said quietly, with a tone that left no room for argument. Lena watched from the stairs, disbelief on her face. "Mark, what are you doing?" she asked. I am helping, he replied simply. Lena laughed lightly. She is staff. That is not your responsibility. Mark placed the basket down carefully. He turned to Lena, his expression calm but firm. She has done more for me than you realize, he said. Lena crossed her arms. You are being emotional. People like her should know their place. The words hung heavy in the air. Anna stood frozen, her eyes fixed on the floor. Mark looked at Anna and then back at Lena. His voice remained steady. Anna, you may take the rest of the evening off, he said. Anna hesitated. But my work is not finished. It is, Mark replied. That is my decision. Anna nodded, tears filling her eyes, and slowly walked away. Lena stepped closer to Mark. You are spoiling her. This kind of behavior makes staff lazy. Mark did not respond. Instead, he walked into his study and closed the door. Inside, he sat down at his desk and opened an old drawer he rarely touched. Inside were documents, photos, and letters from his past. One letter stood out. It was written in simple handwriting, full of care and concern. Anna had written it years ago when Mark left for college, reminding him to eat well and believe in himself. Mark read it again, his jaw tightening with resolve. That night, Lena hosted a small family gathering. Her relatives arrived dressed elegantly, laughing and talking loudly. They admired the house and praised Lena for her lifestyle. Anna stayed in the background, serving drinks quietly despite Mark's earlier instruction. She felt uncomfortable resting while guests were present. One of Lena's cousins noticed Anna and whispered something, causing a few others to laugh softly. Lena heard it and smiled. She has been around forever, she said loudly. Sometimes people forget when it is time to step aside. The laughter grew. Anna felt her face burn with shame. Mark entered the room at that moment. The laughter faded as everyone turned toward him. He looked around, taking in the scene. He saw Anna standing alone, her hands shaking slightly. He saw the smug expressions on a few faces. He saw Lena's confident smile. Mark cleared his throat. I would like everyone's attention, he said. The room fell silent. This woman, he said, gesturing toward Anna, is the reason I am standing here today. Murmurs spread across the room. When I had nothing, she gave me everything she could, Mark continued. When I was hungry, she fed me. When I was afraid, she protected me. When the world looked down on me, she reminded me of my worth. Lena's smile faded. Mark walked over to Anna and gently placed a hand on her shoulder. She is not just staff, he said. She is my family. The guests stared in shock. Lena opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Mark's voice grew firmer. And I will not allow anyone under this roof to disrespect her. The room was silent except for Anna's quiet sobs. This was only the beginning. Mark had made a decision long ago, and now the time had come to act. The family had no idea what his next move would be, but it would change everything they thought they knew about power, respect, and gratitude. The room stayed quiet long after Mark finished speaking. No one moved. The guests looked at one another, unsure whether they were still welcome or if they should leave. Lena stood frozen near the sofa, her face tight with disbelief and embarrassment. She had never imagined this moment. In her mind, the house was hers to control, and the people in it existed to serve her image. Anna tried to step back, uncomfortable with so much attention. Tears rolled down her cheeks, not from shame this time, but from memories she had buried long ago. She had never expected Mark to speak like that in front of everyone. Mark gently removed his hand from her shoulder and turned back to the guests. You are welcome to enjoy the evening, he said calmly. But respect is not optional here. Some guests nodded awkwardly. Others avoided eye contact. A few quietly picked up their coats and excused themselves. The mood of celebration vanished, replaced by tension and whispered conversations. Lena finally found her voice. Mark, You embarrassed me in front of my family, she said, trying to keep her tone steady. Mark looked at her without anger. You embarrassed yourself by forgetting what respect means. Lena shook her head. You are choosing staff over your wife. I am choosing decency, Mark replied. He turned toward Anna. Please go rest. I will speak with you later. Anna hesitated, then nodded. She walked away slowly, her heart heavy but grateful. When she reached her small room at the back of the house, she sat on the bed and pressed her hands together. She remembered the little boy Mark once was, holding her hand tightly on his first day of school. She had protected him then, and now he had protected her. Downstairs, Lena followed Mark into his study and closed the door sharply behind her. What is going on with you? She demanded. You are acting like I did something unforgivable. You did, Mark said quietly. She laughed in disbelief. I corrected a worker. That is normal. No, Mark replied. You humiliated a woman who raised me. Lena's eyes widened. Raised you? Yes, Mark said. When my parents were never home, she was. When we had little money, she made sure I felt rich in care. Lena turned away. That was before. This is now. That is exactly the problem, Mark said. You think the past does not matter. Lena crossed her arms. You never told me she meant that much to you. You never asked, Mark replied. Silence filled the room. Lena's anger slowly shifted into something else, fear. She sensed that Mark's calm tone hid a deeper decision. The next morning, the house woke to an unusual change. A car arrived early, carrying a man in a neat suit carrying documents. The staff whispered quietly, unsure what was happening. Anna was called to the main sitting room. Her hands shook as she walked in. Mark was seated, calm and composed. Lena stood near the window, arms crossed, clearly unhappy. Please sit, Mark said kindly. Anna obeyed, her posture stiff. I want to talk about your future, Mark said. Anna looked down. If I have made trouble, I am sorry. I can leave. No, Mark said firmly. You will not leave. He nodded to the man in the suit, who placed a folder on the table and opened it. Mark spoke slowly. For years, you have worked here with loyalty and care. But more than that, you have been family to me. Anna's eyes filled with tears. I have arranged something for you, Mark continued. A house nearby, fully paid. You will receive a monthly income, enough for comfort and peace. You will never have to work again unless you choose to. Anna gasped softly. Sir, I cannot accept this. You can, Mark said gently. And you will. Lena turned sharply. You did this without telling me. Yes, Mark replied. This is my house too, she said. This was my decision, Mark said calmly. And it is final. Anna covered her mouth, overwhelmed. Why are you doing all this now? Mark smiled softly. Because I waited too long. The man in the suit explained the documents carefully. Anna listened, barely understanding, her heart pounding. When it was done, Mark stood and helped Anna up. You deserve dignity, he said. Always. Anna nodded, unable to speak. Word spread quickly among the staff. Some smiled, others watched silently. They had never seen this side of Mark so clearly before. Lena spent the day in anger and disbelief. She felt her control slipping. For the first time since marrying Mark, she felt uncertain about her place. That evening, Mark visited Anna's room. I am sorry you had to experience that, he said. Anna shook her head. You gave me more than I ever dreamed. You gave me my life, Mark replied. She smiled gently. You were always a good boy. Mark laughed softly. As days passed, preparations for Anna's move began. She resisted at first, wanting to stay close, but Mark insisted. You will still be part of my life, he said. Just without the burden. Lena watched all of this quietly. She tried to convince herself it was temporary. But deep inside, she knew something had changed. During a family dinner a week later, Lena's relatives returned. This time, the atmosphere was different. Anna was not present. Mark sat calmly at the head of the table. One cousin whispered, "Where is the old woman?" Mark heard it. "She is living in comfort now," he said evenly. "As she should." The cousin fell silent. Lena forced a smile, but her eyes burned with resentment. Later that night, Lena confronted Mark again. "You are ruining our image," she said. "Our image was already broken," Mark replied. "I just revealed it." She stared at him. "You will regret choosing her over me." Mark's expression did not change. This was never a choice between people. It was a choice between values. Lena realized then that she was losing something far greater than control. She was losing Mark's trust. And Mark, standing quietly in the dim room, knew that his next move would not only protect Anna, but would also test the foundation of his marriage and expose the true nature of everyone under his roof. The new house stood quietly on a peaceful street lined with trees and soft evening light. It was not large or flashy, but it felt warm and safe. Anna stood at the doorway, holding a small box of personal items, her hands trembling slightly. She never imagined a life like this. For decades, she had lived for others, waking early, sleeping late, never asking for more. Now everything felt unreal. Mark stood beside her. "This is your home," he said gently. Anna looked around, tears forming again. "I do not know how to thank you." "You already did," Mark replied. "Long ago." They walked inside. The house was fully furnished, simple and comfortable. Photos from Mark's childhood were framed on the walls. Anna touched one carefully, smiling. "You remembered," she said. "I never forgot," Mark replied. Later that evening, Mark returned to the main house. The place felt colder than before. Lena sat in the living room, scrolling on her phone. She did not look up when Mark entered. "We need to talk," Mark said. Lena sighed and placed the phone aside. "If this is about her again, I am tired." "This is about us," Mark said. She leaned back. "You changed." "No," Mark replied calmly. "I stopped hiding who I am." Lena's voice hardened. "You humiliated me. You made my family look foolish." "They did that themselves," Mark said. "I simply refused to accept it." Silence followed. Lena studied his face, searching for hesitation, for weakness. She found none. "You care more about the past than the present," she said. "I care about character," Mark replied. "And that exists in every moment." Days passed. The house remained quiet. Lena avoided Mark, and Mark focused on work. Yet something heavy hung in the air. Decisions unspoken were shaping the future. One afternoon, Mark invited his parents to the house. They had always remained distant, proud of his success but detached from his life. When they arrived, Lena greeted them politely, hiding her tension behind a practiced smile. They sat together in the living room. Mark spoke openly. "I want to talk about Anna," he said. His mother frowned slightly. "Why now?" "Because she raised me more than anyone else," Mark said. "And I want that truth respected." His father shifted uncomfortably. "We provided for her." "You provided money," Mark replied. "She provided love." The words landed firmly. His parents looked at each other, realizing for the first time how deep this went. "She will always be family to me," Mark continued. "And anyone who disrespects her disrespects me." Lena remained silent, her jaw tight. That evening, Mark made another decision. He asked Lena to join him for dinner outside the house. She agreed, thinking perhaps this was an attempt at peace. They sat across from each other in a quiet restaurant. Mark spoke gently but firmly. "I need honesty," he said. "Can you accept the people who shaped me?" Lena hesitated. "I married you," not your past. Mark nodded. That answer tells me everything. Lena stiffened. Are you threatening me? No, Mark replied. I am being clear. He continued, marriage is not about control or image. It is about shared values. We do not share them. Lena's face paled. You would throw everything away over this. I would rebuild everything rather than live false, Mark said. The words ended the conversation. Lena said nothing more. Weeks passed. Lena moved through the house like a guest. Mark remained polite but distant. Eventually, Lena asked to speak. I cannot live like this, she said. Neither can I, Mark replied. They agreed to separate quietly. No drama, no public spectacle. Lena left the house with dignity, though her pride was wounded deeply. She told her family a different version of the story, but the truth stayed behind with Mark. When the house finally emptied of tension, Mark felt peace for the first time in years. He visited Anna often. They shared tea, spoke of old times, and laughed softly. She was healthier now, her face brighter, her steps steadier. One day Anna asked, Do you regret anything? Mark smiled. Only waiting so long. News of Mark's choices spread quietly through business circles. Some admired him. Others questioned him. Mark did not care. For the first time, his success felt clean. Months later, Mark hosted a small gathering at Anna's new home. A few close friends attended. No one spoke loudly. No one looked down on anyone else. Anna stood beside Mark, smiling proudly. You grew into a good man, she said. I had a good teacher, Mark replied. As the evening ended, Mark stood alone for a moment, looking at the stars. He thought of the boy he once was, standing in worn shoes, holding a warm hand that never let go. He understood something clearly now. Wealth could buy comfort, but character built legacy. And Mark had chosen his legacy.